If you've ever been told to just stay calm while your child is screaming in your face, kicking the door, throwing things, or hitting you, and I'm talking about real aggression here, and then you've quietly hated yourself because you couldn't be the calm parent in that storm, I want to say something to you before we could go one step further, because it's a thing I wish someone had said to me. You are not supposed to feel calm in those moments, my friend. It isn't possible. And chasing calm might actually be making these moments harder for you. So take that in for a second, because I know how much weight you've been carrying trying to be the serene, gentle, unshakable parent while your child rages and destroys and gets aggressive, and how much you've beaten yourself up every time the anger rose up in you, anyways. So, this is for the parents whose kids don't melt down quietly. The PDA kids, the autistic kids, the ADHD, hypersensitive, high needs kids, ODD, whose big meltdowns are loud and physical and long. And here's what I didn't understand for years: there is a completely different thing we can aim for. It's not perfectly calm. And the day I finally understood what it actually was, everything started to change for me. And as a bonus that I never saw coming, it actually changed for my son too. So let's begin. Now, before we go any further, this is part one of a two-part series on aggression, your child having aggression towards you or towards siblings or in the house. And the question you probably came here is the one I get asked more than any other. What do I actually do when my child is hitting me? Or maybe even when they're destroying something in the house? It's hands down the hardest thing that so many of us are living with, because being hit by your own child or watching them go after a sibling, that's not easy. So I want you to know up front, we are going to get into what you can do when that aggression is aimed at you. Some of it in this part one, but more of it in part two, because this is a big topic that deserves to be spoken about in depth. So today is part one, which is where I always start. And it's about gaining awareness of what happens in these moments inside you first. Because everything you try to do in these moments, every strategy, every response, every tool, it either helps or it backfires, depending on the state you're in when you reach for that tool or strategy. So if it comes from panic, from your own fight or flight, even the so-called right move ends up pouring fuel on the fire of your child. And to be honest, the real change I saw with my son came when I learned to catch my own patterns and settle my nervous system first. And I want to say the science backs this up, and I'm going to get into this. So stay tuned. This is really good science. So let's understand what's happening inside you when your child gets aggressive, because that inner shift in the ground that comes before everything you try to do for them, that's the most important part. And then that's what's going to help you with all the strategies and tools that we expand upon in part two. So you can't do your way out of these moments. Okay. You can't do your way out of these moments until you've learned how to be in them. Being. So we start with you. Okay. Because the truth is, we've been chasing two wrong things, my friends. The first is we're chasing calm. We think we should be calm when what we actually need to feel is just safe enough, safe enough. Okay, so that's what we're stepping into, that even while we're activated, we can feel safe enough. And the second thing we chase is, how do I make my child stop? How do I make them stop? That's the one we chase the most. Okay, when the real question is, how do I notice my own pattern and settle my own nervous system so I stop fueling their fire inadvertently, not on purpose, right? Because as much as we may think we are not adding to their fire, I've coached hundreds of parents, okay? I would say we often are adding to their fire on a daily basis, but we don't even realize it. Okay, so I'll keep coming back to these two, because together they are the whole shift. It's the foundation behind everything. And this is exactly why the strategies we get into in part two, the things you actually try with your child, work so much better when you can rewire this foundation that we're going to talk about today. Okay, so let's get into my story. When the meltdowns lasted for 5 hours daily for months on end. Okay, so let me take you right back to when I was in the thick of this. When my son was younger, his meltdowns could last like 5 hours. Now, 5 minutes, 5 hours. And I don't mean like crying in a room, I mean like full on raging. He would move through the house, banging and breaking things, try to hit us and throw things at us. And when he ran outside, he'd bang on the garage doors of the neighbors. And I remember the specific feeling of this hot wave of fear that the neighbors would hate us or even call the police. And then the shame I would feel on top of everything else for not being able to control my child. Okay, it is not a small thing to be in these kinds of situations. And it is not a small thing to be hit, thrown at, or to watch someone you love aim for the exact spot on you or your partner that he knows will land and hurt. Okay. Our kids, when they're in it, can be so much stronger and so much more precise than people imagine. Like it feels like they know what they're doing and that they're being strategic about it when they hit you in just that right spot. So, what happens when you're experiencing all of this? Well, your body reads it as what it is, a threat. And it does what bodies will automatically do when feeling threatened. It starts to mobilize fight, flight energy to take action, to protect, to fix, to control, to do anything to get this stressful behavior happening outside of you to stop so that you can feel okay inside of you. Okay. Now, for some of us, it can go in the opposite direction. Instead of fight or flight, it can go into freeze or shutdown. So either we stand there frozen, not knowing what to do, or we drop into this total exasperation and despair and that feeling of, I just can't handle this. I just can't take anymore. Okay. And sometimes it's cycling between the two until the stress builds enough that you blow to or take an aggressive action towards your child, like restraining them, and you land in a pit of guilt and shame later. And it always feels like a no-win situation, no choice, no good options, right? And that makes sense that it feels that way, okay? So here's what I actually did for a long time before I understood any of this. This was my pattern. I would clamp down. I would go very still and very quiet and try to look like the calm, regulated parent I thought I was supposed to be. Okay, fat, like a flat face, neutral, flat face, level voice, saying the right words, trying to say the right words. Well, inside I was this pressure cooker, feeling a lot of activation underneath. Okay. And I could only do that for so long. I could only clamp down on that much activation for so long because it takes an enormous amount of energy to hold everything down and in. And all of us do that as parents. And then eventually the lid would come off and I'd erupt. I'd rage right back at him, try to scare the daylights out of him, anything to get him to stop. And then I'd hate myself for it. Absolutely hate myself for it and spiral into that shame spiral. Okay. And what also happened was there were nights where I would lock myself in a room just to keep my own body safe. And he did not like that. He'd be on the other side of the door, kicking it, and I'd be on my side of the door, peeking out every little while to make sure he was safe, my own heart going 100 miles an hour. And sometimes I would stay with him, but I'd grab pillows and I would hold the pillows in front of me. And then sometimes I'd just, ride it out and let him damage the home. Okay. And underneath all of it, on the worst nights, was that thought, that one that so many of you know. Nothing works. No matter what I do, nothing works. And I can't live like this. So I want to be honest about the timeline, okay? Because as I go into everything and explain everything, I want to be honest about this timeline because I don't believe in overnight miracle versions of these stories. Okay. This did not turn around in a week. It took me a long time. My husband and I both had to work on it. It took us a long time, a lot of trial and error, and a lot of getting it wrong. And then finally understanding what we needed to do. And then what needed to happen was consistency and showing up in the same way over time to repattern all of our mental models, all of our nervous system patterns, and then help my son step into the repattern as well as we repatterned. Okay. But there was a turn, and the turn didn't come from finding the perfect technique to make him stop. It came from something happening inside of me first, inside of my husband first. Okay. What I understood much later was this: I had been trying to control the storm. And the whole time, the thing that actually helped was learning how to be safe inside the storm. Not calm, but safe enough. Okay. So that's what we're aiming for. Okay. And how do we feel safe enough? First, we've really got to gain awareness. Okay. So let's understand the survival patterns that we fall into without realizing. Okay. Because before I could learn a new way, I had to see what I was already doing. And what I found was that when my son escalated, my nervous system had a handful of automatic moves, and every one of them came from a belief about what a good parent is supposed to do in that moment, or almost every one of them. So let me name them because I think you'll know some of these intimately as I name them. And it's so important to really gain awareness of the patterns of our nervous systems automatically go into so that we can begin to change them, because all of them tend to fuel your child's fire even more. Okay. And a lot of the time we don't even recognize we're in them. So let's start to notice them. So the first pattern is the reasoner. Okay, this is the one where you keep talking. Okay, but you can't hit me. Hitting hurts. Let's use our words. Remember what we said about hitting? So we use our words. We try to explain, often with an escalated or a deepening tone of voice that signals danger to them. And we're trying to reach the thinking part of their brain that has completely gone offline. And every time, poof, it gets bigger. We're fueling their fire. And then the belief underneath this for us is, if I can just explain it well enough, if I can just reason with them, I can talk him down. Okay. The next pattern, the fixer. You jump in to make it stop. You move towards your child. You intervene. You manage. You control. Your whole body is oriented around one goal: end this now. The belief underneath is that a good parent stops the meltdown. Okay. And don't get me wrong, this is needed sometimes. When there are real safety concerns and other siblings involved, it's needed. But it's often the energy and the safe enough state behind our action that matters here. Okay. And the next pattern, performer of calm. This is the one I lived. Calm on the outside. On the outside, you look calm. Flat face, low monotone voice, saying all the right calm things, but you're not actually in your body. You've clamped down hard on everything that you're feeling so that you can function, right? So you're recruiting social engagement behaviors, and you're doing this automatically without your conscious awareness, trying to act like you're okay and calm, trying to calm them. You're this performer of calm that's very automatic. This is a deep pattern in many of our nervous systems. Okay, but it's not true regulation. So it's really important to recognize this. This isn't true regulation and calm. It's a freeze response, functional freeze. Your system has put this numbing lid on all of the activation it's feeling underneath so that you don't have to feel it anymore. And instead, it recruits the behaviors that it knows can help somebody to socially engage with you. Okay, but holding this much stress energy in actually burns a huge amount of energy, and it either leaves you primed to explode out of nowhere or later sends you into exhaustion, despair, and burnout. And as much as we think we're being regulated, our children can feel this mismatch. I know my son did. He feels it. He tells me when I think I'm being calm, and he's not, he's reacting a certain way, even after like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of me being this way. Um, I always have to check in. Am I really calm? Okay. Because their bodies, their nervous system, they read the tension underneath the calm mask, and it doesn't feel safe to them, and it feels actually confusing. So looking calm and being calm in your nervous system are not the same thing. And children read the truth underneath, not this performance layer on top. And I want you to understand this performance of calm is not something you're consciously doing on purpose. Okay, so there's no shame here. Most of us aren't even aware it's happening. Okay, we're just so used to handling stressful moments in life this way, right? This is the way we handle stressful moments, even out in public or with people we don't know well. Okay, there's this level of functioning like you're okay, but inside you're not okay. And then this gets exacerbated with our kids. And we think that this is how we're supposed to show that we're calm. Okay, so it's a deeply patterned response. And it can take a while to really feel into this and to notice how there's a layer of trying to be calm while underneath you don't actually feel safe at all. Okay, then the next pattern is the peacekeeper. This is the over explaining, over apologizing, offering 10 choices, giving in, trying to fix your child's feelings so the storm will stop. And the belief underneath is if I can make him feel better fast enough, this will end and I will finally feel safe and okay. This is also a deeply patterned young childhood response, I would say. Okay. And you might recognize this as the people pleasing or the fawning response or the appeasing response. Okay. But this strategy often doesn't work either. It just teaches everyone that the storm is unbearable. It deeply wires in that pattern for yourself, and it also teaches your child that the storm is unbearable. And then there are two more patterns, and these ones aren't really about what we believe make us a good parent, but they're just as important to recognize. Okay. One is the collapser. This is when it's all too much and you drop into that dorsal vagal system of shutdown into, I can't, I just can't take anymore. I just can't handle this. And into this feeling of despair or into that far away numb place where it feels like this will never end. And this is so painful that my nervous system just starts to numb me out from all of it or dissociate me. Okay. And I'll be honest, I had my own moments where my old trauma got triggered and I would have this collapsing response and I'd end up whimpering and crying and saying, I can't take anymore. I can't take anymore. So that's a real place a lot of us go. And there's no shame in it. It's a nervous system that feels like there's no choice and it feels trapped and it feels so overwhelmed by it all. And it's almost always fueled by past trauma getting activated in the present. Okay, and then the last thing that last pattern that nobody wants to admit, this is turning on your partner. Okay, because you can't take that fight energy out on your child, right? So your brain and nervous system says, I can't fight my child. This is my child. So then sometimes it swings sideways onto your partner and you start directing that energy at them, blaming them, controlling them, even trying to teach them or tell them what to do in the moment because they might be activating your child more and you just want them to stop so that your child will stop, right? And this is the fight system looking for somewhere to put all of that fight flight energy, and the partner is the safer target. Okay, so if you've done this, you're not a bad partner. We all do this. Your survival system was looking for some semblance of control and, putting it anywhere where it could find it. Okay. Now, the belief underneath almost all of these patterns is the same misconception, my friends. And I want to say it as plainly as I can. We believe we are supposed to feel calm. We believe that a regulated parent is a calm parent. And so if the anger rises in us, if we want to fall back, if we feel that surge of, I can't let this happen, then we feel like somehow we failed, that we're not supposed to have this reaction inside of us. Okay, that we're doing it wrong, that we're the problem. And that belief, it's quietly crushing us. Okay, and there's a second one tucked right beside it. We believe that there is a right thing to do, a perfect script, a magic move. And if we could just find it, we could just find that right move, then we could make this all stop. Okay? I'm just laughing because not to make little of this, but I was that for so long. Like that is a survival system response right there, my friends. Okay, so I had a mother message me about exactly this. She said her son follows her when she walks away, punches the door when he closes it. And then this line stayed with me. She said, speaking doesn't tend to help, but neither does staying quiet. And I understood exactly what she meant because I'd been there. When you're hunting for the perfect action before talking and silence, when you're hunting for the perfect action, okay, then you try one thing and it doesn't work. You try the other thing, it doesn't work. Like, let's say you try talking, or then you try silence, okay? And then both feel like failures because neither one reliably stops the storm, right? So you're always looking for something that's going to be the magic tool to stop this storm right now, and that's survival system and mode. But what if the goal was never to find the perfect action or to feel totally calm? Because neither of those was ever actually possible. Okay, and here's what I most need you to take in about these patterns. They are part of what's fueling the fire. Every one of them springs from the same, what do I do to make this stop place? Fight, flight, right? It's really control in disguise, our own fight or flight, looking for a way to make it stop. So this is where the work begins. Okay, not forcing the patterns away, but noticing them so that you can help your own nervous system feel safe enough instead of adding your storm to theirs, and then take action from that safe enough, steadier place instead of from fear and trying to make it stop. Now, one important caveat here, okay, is that real danger comes first. Okay, so it's really important to name this because if your child's behavior is truly dangerous in that someone is getting hurt, your first job is safety. Okay, and your nervous system is going to do what it does and let it do what it does with enough, ideally with enough safety on board. Okay, that you can intervene and create more safety. And we're going to go further into that in part 2 in terms of the actual tools you can do in the moment. So none of what I'm about to say is about really standing there and taking the blows from your child. I mean, sometimes that has happened if you can tolerate the blows and you don't really get hurt from it. Like say your child is smaller and their blows don't hurt as much. We've done that at times, but this is not condoning or saying that you should stand there and take the blows. And we're going to get more into that in part 2, but right now, it's about what is happening inside of you while you keep everyone as safe as you can. And when you have to intervene for safety, you want to stay as safe as you can, do what you need to do to create safety, and then have repair later. Okay, now let's go into a little bit more detail in terms of the nervous system to help you understand what's really happening in your nervous system and your child's nervous system and the layers underneath this. Okay, so I'm going to take you under the hood, so to speak, for a few minutes, because understanding this is exactly what took the shame off me. And I think it might for you too. I know all my parents in my regulation rebuild course, when they understand the nervous system, shame lessens, and that's going to help your nervous system. Okay, so here's why it matters for you practically, because when you understand what's actually happening, you stop fighting your own body and you stop fighting your child's body and you start working with both energies instead. Okay, so that's the thing that finally shifts what happens next. So there are 3 layers happening at once in these moments. And once you can see them, this stops feeling like something is wrong with you. So layer one, what's happening in your child's body? Okay, this is a big one to really understand and to step into these reframes. So when your child is fully melting down, they are not giving you a hard time. So most of us pretty much understand that, right? In a higher thinking brain level, but that tends to go offline when we're triggered. We understand that they are having a hard time in the most literal physical way. Okay, but some of us don't. So we need to understand that. It's literally biological. Okay. There's too much energy in their system, more than their body can really hold down. And that energy is really needs to move out of the body. And here's something we don't always see. Our kids are also holding in and clamping down on their own fight or flight responses all day long, just like we do with when we get activated with them. But our kids, they're really sensitive. They have highly sensitive systems and they feel threat more easily. So just think about how many times a day their survival system is getting triggered, like multiple times a day. And I would say, and I've observed my son because I'm a hawk at observing him, that they hold so much of it in. And then there's a tipping point for them too, where they can't hold it in anymore. And there is a trigger or like a loss of autonomy or a wave of shame hits them, and boom, all that held in fight or flight energy, it needs to come out. And they need to let it out, but they don't know how to do it in safe ways. They've become patterned to release it in ways that aren't good for them or for anyone because that's what their brain happened to learn. And our brain is a predictive machine and a pattern making machine. And once it does something and somehow it worked for us, even though it's not functional, it does it again and again. Okay, so it's not easy to repattern these things, but it's possible. And I've seen it with my son. So in the moments when this pattern erupts, they cannot override it. Okay. All the energy, it's like a volcano erupting, the energy needs to come out. Okay. Even, when you try to help them by doing instead of being, right? Because it doesn't work because their thinking and reasoning and verbal part of their brain has gone offline. And under threat, the brain shunts all its resources away from language and logic towards the survival brain. So that's why reasoning doesn't land. There's no one home in the reasoning department in their brain. This is survival energy now that needs to discharge. And a lot of the time, the kindest and wisest thing is to let that wave rise and fall while keeping everyone safe. And it's what I call riding the wave. Riding the wave, my friends. It's not easy, but it'll come down. Okay. Sometimes it takes longer than you'd expect. And it's not because you're doing it wrong. Their body might have other things going on, like a blood sugar crash, sending adrenaline through them, or low dopamine, or other things we just cannot see in their system. So we hold this loosely. Their body is discharging something and it will come down even if we can't control exactly when. And I would say it will come down even faster over time as we stay consistent with staying safe enough and mirroring that to them. Okay, so layer one, that was layer one, what's happening in your child's body. Now, layer one continued what's happening in your body and nervous system. Now, here's the part I want you to hear because it's the thing that took the shame off me. When your child hits you, okay, or throws something or destroys something you love, your nervous system activates. It floods with fight flight energy. This is human. This is natural. You feel the surge to stop it, to push back, to protect. And that is not a character flaw. So can you stop beating yourself up over it? Okay. I had to really work on that one. This is not you being an angry or even a dysregulated person. This is a healthy nervous system doing exactly what a nervous system is built to do when it's under threat. Your anger in that moment is not a failure of regulation. It's a sign your system is working. You are being hit. Of course, it wants to fight back and protect you. This is part of the human design. So if the goal isn't to make the activation go away, because we can't, and honestly, we wouldn't want to switch off a system that's trying to protect us, then what is the goal? Here's the shift in the science, and it's everything. We have a branch of the nervous system, the ventral vagal system. It's our safety and social system. And its job is not to erase fight energy. Its job is to hold it, to put an umbrella over it, so to speak, to build a felt sense of safety so that all that mobilized energy can stay as safe enough fight or flight, sympathetic energy, safe enough, sympathetic. Okay, there's danger sympathetic, and then there's safe enough sympathetic, where you're activated, you're alert, you're mobilizing energy, you're energized, but you're not tipped over into extreme danger state of blind defensive rage, and you're not tipped over into the collapsing down into shutdown because your system cannot handle all of that fight flight energy and feels like it has no choice to fight or flee. Okay, so think of the difference between the energy of sprinting. Let's say you're sprinting because you're playing versus you're sprinting because something is chasing you. So it's the same racing heart, same fast breath, same mobilized body, but completely different felt sense inside. One has safety on board. Okay, so this is one of the deeper foundational understandings of understanding sympathetic fight flight, that it's going to get mobilized, but can we also have safety on board? It doesn't have to be just danger. Safety can be on board too to help hold danger. Okay, so that's what we're going for. Okay, not no activation, activation with safety wrapped around it so your thinking brain can stay online and you can actually choose what you do next. Okay, so layer 2 of really understanding what's happening here in the nervous system. This is what's happening between you and your child's nervous system. That's a second layer. So your two nervous systems are not separate in these moments, okay? They are talking to each other constantly underneath words through something called neuroception, okay? The way our bodies read safety or danger in others before we've even thought a single thought. It's below the level of conscious awareness, okay? And our bodies are designed to ping with each other. One person pings and the other person pings. And especially if it's your child, that is part of your design, okay? And is also part of their design to ping with you. So your child's body is reading your body all the time. Your tone of voice, your posture, the tension in your face, the energy coming off you through mirror neurons and that constant exchange, their system is asking one question or two really here. Am I safe with all this that's going on inside me right now? Am I safe with all this? And then they're looking to you. Is my parent showing me that they feel safe with me even when I feel out of control? And then that tells them, am I safe with all of this going on inside of me? So their nervous system is constantly looking for cues that you feel safe enough and okay with their big reactions so that they can learn to feel safe and okay within their storm too. And over time, that's also how their nervous system learns to regulate. So when your safety system is holding your fight energy, okay, when you're activated, but okay, mobilized, but not dangerous or numbing it down, your child's body picks that up. It gets a message it desperately needs. It's safe to have big feelings here and big sensations here. The adult can handle my storm. I am not too much. And that over time usually helps them feel safer within their own storm and come down faster because their nervous system is learning. They're learning from your nervous system. This is how we teach regulation, emotional regulation, nervous system regulation through feeling their pinging with them, feeling it, and then having our safe enough on board, which then mirrors it back to them, which then their nervous system starts to bring their safe enough on board. Okay? So regulating yourself is regulating your child. Your nervous system is the single biggest cue of safety they have. Okay, now I know some of you are thinking right now, Afshan, this doesn't work for me. I stay regulated and my kid still escalates. I hear you, my friend, and I'm not going to pretend it's a magic switch because it's not. Okay, I used to do this. I used to do it 1 or 2 times. I'm like, it didn't work. Okay. Sometimes it takes longer, especially if you've been in patterns together for a long time. And you'll need to be more consistent, repeating this way of being many times, sometimes hundreds of times before their nervous system can fully trust it and form new mental models and their own nervous system patterns with you. Okay, so I'll say more about that in part two. But stay with me here because the research on this is stronger than you'd expect. So there's this company out in the UK. I love their work. I love their work. I found them when I was in a desperate state and they helped me so much. They're called Studio 3 and they do the low arousal approach. Okay. So Professor Andrew McDonnell and the Studio 3 team, okay, they developed this low arousal approach and it's been developed over 30 plus years for exactly these situations, managing aggression and crisis. And its central finding is striking. The most powerful lever in a crisis is not the child's behavior, it's how the supporting adult behaves, their own arousal, their calm, their body language. Take that in for a moment, my friends. Okay, this is the research. They have research on this. So their approach is built on reducing stress and arousal in both people. So avoiding confrontation and demands, never using punishment. They point out that a huge portion of communication is nonverbal. So a caregiver's ability to bring calm, neutral, non-confrontational energy is treated as the actual intervention. Your nervous system is the intervention, my friends. Okay, and then the outcomes back it up. One service in Nova Scotia that implemented this over 5 years saw around a 40% reduction in distress behaviors and a 69% reduction in staff injuries. Okay, and then a 2024 study of families using the approach found parents reporting far fewer crises. And one parent said, we do not really get the crisis situations anymore. And 15 of 17 families reported better relationships, which is really like so important for your child's future and for all of your happiness, right? Better relationships. So managing your own arousal isn't the soft option. It's really the evidence-based one, okay? And I love this research because it says in clinical language, the thing I learned on my kitchen floor. You are not the crisis manager standing outside the storm. You are inside it, and your own state is the intervention. And here's the part I want you to hold on to because it's your state, not a technique, that helps build this change over time. When you bring your safe enough presence consistently, even imperfectly, their nervous system, your child's nervous system, slowly learns to trust yours and to borrow it until it can learn that steadiness itself, okay, which can take time to really wire into your child based on their developmental process. So that's what makes the storms come less often and pass more quickly when they do. The aggression, even the hitting, easing over time, okay? Not through perfect words, not through the perfect strategy, through you, safe enough again and again. And this is why I teach this in my regulation rebuild course. And this is why this course is an 18-week long course now, because it takes time to really develop this new way of being. Okay, now layer 3, the beliefs and wiring underneath it all, okay? Underneath the biology, the one that's actually driving so much of the reaction. This is the engine underneath all of the nervous system wiring. It's the meanings we carry, okay? For a lot of us, our child's aggression doesn't just trigger a threat response, it triggers our history. Okay, so maybe you grew up where anger meant danger, where you had to keep the peace to stay safe, where a raised voice meant something bad was coming. So when your child rages, it's not only today's threat your body is responding to, it's every time you ever felt unsafe and powerless in the past. And that's why these moments can feel so much bigger than the moment itself. Okay. And then there are the beliefs about what makes a good child, a lovable child, a child who belongs, a child who will be okay in the world. And we witness these behaviors. When we witness these behaviors, all of the expectations our brain quietly holds gets triggered too, whispering that our child will never fit in, never belong, never be loved by others, never be successful, according to the conditioned mental models we have picked up along the way. And then underneath it all, those beliefs about ourselves that we named earlier, that a good parent stays calm, that if I can't control this, I'm failing, that my child's behavior is somehow a report card on me. Those are the real fuel. Okay. That's what they're what turn a hard moment into one filled with fear or shame. And part of this work, okay, the deep part is meeting those beliefs and slowly rewiring a truer story into your nervous system that your child's behavior does not define them or you. It just means that right now, biologically speaking, their nervous system does not feel safe. Okay. So the shift, let's get into the shift. The real shift is from what do I do to how do I be? Okay, that's the whole thing in one line. For years, I was asking the wrong question. I was asking over and over in the middle of the storm, what do I do? What do I do to make this stop? What's the right move? What's the technique? Okay, and the shift, the thing that actually changed everything was moving from what do I do to how do I be? Okay, the goal was never to be this calm, perfect parent. The goal is to be safe enough, regulated enough, and inside myself that I can take action in a steady way and ride this wave without being swept under it. Okay, so calm enough, regulated enough, safe enough, not perfectly calm. That's a fantasy that only makes you feel like a failure. Safe enough on the inside that your thinking brain stays online so that you have choices, so that you can send your child cues of safety, even while a part of you hates every second of it. That's the target. Okay. And it is so much more reachable than calm because it's real. And I want to say it can also look messy. Okay. The safe enough is not about looking calm, my friends, or even feeling calm. It's about working with this energy inside of you, helping it feel safe enough that it doesn't take you over into your own aggressive meltdown or shut you down into total disconnection. Okay, so your takeaway now, what to do with this now. So let me make this really concrete because I know you're not here for just more ideas and concepts. You're here for what to actually do. Okay, most of us have no mental model for these moments except the old conditioned ones we grew up with that cause us to react in ways that we don't want to. So let me give you some new ones and show you exactly how each one translates into something you can do starting today. So step one is not, or the first one is step into the reframes. Okay. So there are 3 reframes, new mental models to reach for in the moment in the place of the old ones. And some of you are good at stepping into reframes. Some of you will need to work with the body first to then step into the reframe to help the body shift state enough to step into the reframe. Okay. But the first reframe is really stepping into this. It's not about being calm. It's about feeling safe enough to handle the storm and ride the wave until it's over. So in the moment, this means you stop trying to force yourself to be calm and you aim for something that's actually reachable, which is just safe enough to stay in it, right? So you're the whole time you're like feeling this activation, and then you're bringing safety on board to feel safe enough to stay with this activation so that you stay online. You, your true self, stays online. Your higher thinking brain stays online. Okay. But it's really a reframe to step into. Okay. From I should be perfectly calm to really no, I should, it's better to be okay that this activation is here and be with it and help it feel safe enough. Then the second reframe is my activation is expected, and so is my child's, which I just talked about a minute ago. Okay. And can that be okay right now? Okay. This one is about stopping the fight with reality. Instead of this shouldn't be happening, you allow what's here and you work with it, because what you can allow, then you can actually help that. Okay. If you're fighting it, you can't help it. Right. So the first reframe, it's not about being calm. It's about being safe enough to handle the storm, ride the wave until it's over. The second reframe, my activation is expected and so is my child's. And can that be okay? Can I allow all of it to be here just as it is so I can begin to help it? And then the third reframe is my nervous system is the intervention. My nervous system is the intervention. So the moment you feel yourself scrambling for what do I do? What do I do? Let that be your cue to stop reaching outside of yourself and outward, and instead come back to yourself and help yourself first. Because you settling, feeling safe enough is the most powerful thing happening in that room. No words needed. Okay. So that's the first thing that you can start doing, okay? Stepping into those reframes. The second thing I want to mention is this one caveat, which is safety first, which I've mentioned before. If there is a real safety issue and someone is about to get hurt, your nervous system will step in fast to create safety, and it should, okay? So here's what to do with that. Just let it be what it is. Don't shame yourself for the fast protective thing your body does to create safety. Help your brain accept that in that moment, this was what was needed, and then repair afterward. Okay, because the reconnection that comes after always matters more than the rupture itself. It helps both your nervous systems learn that there is always a way back to connection. Okay, so the third thing that you can do is become the curious observer of your patterns, the patterns we talked about today, because this is where the real change begins. Like when my child, starts to escalate, or when your child starts to escalate, first get curious, okay? Instead of being hard on yourself, get curious, start to catch yourself in the automatic patterns, the reasoner, the fixer, the performer of calm, the peacekeeper, the collapser, or turning your energy onto your partner, and simply name it. That's survival mode. Oh, there goes that pattern. That's survival mode. Okay, no judgment, just awareness, because you can't shift a pattern that you can't see. And then once you catch it, help yourself regulate, starting with your body, because you can't reframe your way out of a flooded body. So when that energy is really mounting and high, give it somewhere to go. Do a full body shake off, and then let yourself come all the way down and just look around the room and find something around you that cues safety to you and take that in. Okay. Over time, as you interrupt the patterns and regulate them, the less your patterns will take over. And when they do, they won't be as extreme. Okay. And if you want to be walked through some of these body tools step by step, that's exactly what my free guide is for. It's called this 3 Shifts to Make During Your Child's Meltdown. And it's the perfect companion to this episode to give you a start on these tools. And then, of course, there's the Regulation Rebuild 12 Nervous System Shifts course, which is starting this September. And I'll put the links in the show notes. So what do you do? What do I do when my child is hitting me, right? The big question that everybody came in with probably today. One of the big questions. What do I actually do when my child is hitting me? For right now, here's your honest answer. Do the best you can to ride the wave and keep yourself and everyone safe. Use some of the strategies that I tried out, right? This is a lot about trial and error, and it's not necessarily about stopping the storm, but how do you keep it safe enough so that nobody gets hurt? And then always repair after. Let your child know in whatever way that they can receive it that your relationship is stronger than any storm they bring. Okay, that alone changes so much. But I want to be honest with you, okay? Lessening these hits over time is not a one-time hack or a single clever strategy. It's a foundation, and today is where that foundation starts. It starts with learning how to be different, how to change your patterns so you're not adding fuel to the fire. And in part 2, we build on it together, okay? What you can do more of in these moments, and just as importantly, what you can do before the big storm even hits so that over time they become less and less and less intense, less often, and hurt less. Okay. Because that is how the hitting actually lessens over time. Your nervous system staying steady and consistent and slowly teaching theirs that it's safe. So for now, just start here. The next time the storm hits, see if you can catch that fight or flight rising in you. Instead of judging it, just be with it and tell yourself, I don't have to be calm. I just have to be safe enough with what's happening inside of me and what's happening outside of me. And that's where all of it begins. Okay. And then I will see you in part 2, where we get into so much more. So I'm sending you so much love and so much support, because this is not an easy journey, my friends, and you are walking the courageous walk. So stay with me, and you'll learn more about this in part 2, and see you there.